Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Scienterrific Friday. I am Teacher Janelle and I'm on a journey to understanding the different things around us. Ready to join? Come on and let's see how science is everywhere! Think about the members of your family and how they look like. Do your looks have similarities? Or are you one of those people who ask themselves, how come I am part of this family when I look different? I think you now have an idea of what our topic will be. Today, we are going to talk about the different non-Mendelian inheritance patterns. In this topic, we will discover the following. First, what are the different non-Mendelian inheritance patterns? Second, how do incomplete dominance and co-dominance differ from one another? And third, how do multiple alleles and polygenic traits differ from one another? But wait, how about a brief review on the terms that we are going to encounter in this topic? Sounds great? Alright, on to the first term, genes. Genes are the characteristics of an organism. Genotype is the genetic makeup of two parent organisms. It can be expressed in uppercase for dominant traits and lowercase for recessive traits. Phenotype is the expressed physical trait in all aspects of an offspring organism. By all aspects, this means the actual physical appearance and as well as the anatomical and physiological makeup reflected from the genotype. To make it simple, guys, let's look at this example. Genotypes are represented by combination of letters like this: uppercase W and uppercase W, or lowercase w and lowercase w, or a combination of uppercase W and lowercase w. Phenotype is the physical expression of two uppercase W's, which is widow's peak for hairline, and two lowercase w's, which is physically represented as having a straight hairline. Alleles are the variations of a gene that always come in pairs and also represented in letters like genotypes. They come in pairs because they come from both parents, one from the mother and one from the father. Alright, we now understand the important terms in this discussion. To go deeper, let us look back on Gregor Mendel's genetic patterns. But wait, do you know Gregor Mendel? Okay, let's get to know him first before we continue our scientific journey. Gregor Mendel is an Augustinian friar during the 1800s. He observed a certain phenomenon among his pea plants. The flowers of his pea plants come in two colors, purple and white. Thus, the Mendelian inheritance theory was born and soon became the core of classical genetics along with the other studies from other scientists. He noticed that when crossbreeding purple-flowered pea plant with white-flowered pea plant, all the offsprings are purple-flowered. However, when breeding this new generation of purple-flowered pea plants with each other, most of the offsprings are purple-flowered, but some of the offsprings are white-flowered. It must have been a surprise back then to get white-flowered pea plants when all their parents are purple-flowered pea plants. This observation has prompted Mendel to further study this phenomenon, and he was able to observe several other characteristics of pea plants such as seed shape, pod color, plant height, flower location, and many more. It turns out that what he discovered are some of the important tenets of the science we know as genetics, which is why Gregor Mendel is also known as the father of modern genetics. After clearing things up, I guess we are now ready to move on to the real topic, which is the non-Mendelian inheritance patterns. This tackles the different inheritance patterns that were not evident in Mendel's simple concept of dominant over recessive traits, but visible in a person. Non-Mendelian inheritance pattern has two classifications. First is the intensity of dominance, and second is the variation of alleles. When talking about the intensity of dominance, we will encounter two important terms: the codominance and incomplete dominance. This is because not all organisms simply exhibit the dominant traits from its parents. These two terms are actually under the category of dominant traits intensity. Let us start with codominance. From the prefix co, meaning together, added to the word dominance. This means that the offspring carries both the dominant traits from its parents. An example is an offspring cow whose parents are a red-colored cow represented by genotype uppercase R and lowercase r, uppercase R and lowercase r, and a white-colored cow represented by genotype uppercase R, lowercase w, uppercase r, and lowercase w. You can see that the offspring cow has both the dominant traits of its parents as shown in the resultant genotype, which is uppercase R, lowercase r, uppercase r, and lowercase w. This phenotype is called roan, which is a spotted skin color. On a side note, roan means that an animal has a base coat of red, black, or brown and is mixed with several highlights of a different color. Got that? Alright, let's move on to another category. If we are able to see the distinctively dominant traits on the cow earlier, an incomplete dominance is the opposite. Why? It is because in an incomplete dominance, the dominant traits of both parents are expressed in combination in their offspring. In this dominance intensity, neither the two parents were able to completely express their dominant trait in their offspring. Instead, a mixed trait from both parents is expressed in the offspring. An example of this is the offspring of a red flower and a white flower becomes a pink flower. Now, we're done with the intensity of dominance. Let's have a brain break. I have here circles blue and red. Try to determine the inheritance pattern once the colors are combined. Have you noticed the spots when the circles combined? Can you guess the inheritance pattern? Is it codominance or incomplete dominance? How about this? When the circles combined, a new color appeared. What inheritance pattern is this? Is it codominance or incomplete dominance? If you were able to answer everything correctly, we're definitely ready to move on to the next discussion. Now, let's move on to variation of alleles. In this discussion, we will encounter again the term genes as your parents' characteristics. Your parents' genes have varieties, which we will term as alleles. Because of the alleles of your parents, your phenotype, which is your expressed physical trait, will not be based on just one dominant or recessive trait. And there will be more chances of having a trait based on the genotype or genetic makeup of your parents. Try answering this. Genes are your A. Characteristics, B. Physical traits. And alleles are A. Your expressed physical traits, B. Variation of genes. Genotype is the A. Genetic makeup, B. Expressed physical traits. Phenotype is the A. Genetic makeup, B. Expressed physical traits. If you answer everything correctly, that's great! We are now ready to move on to the next category. There are two patterns in this category, namely multiple alleles and polygenic traits. For multiple alleles pattern of inheritance, gene is the characteristic itself. However, a gene can have multiple alleles or variation. In this pattern, a phenotype will be determined by a single genotype with multiple variations. A good example is your blood type. Look at the picture. There are 6 genotypes that can result in 4 phenotypes of blood type, which we know as type A, type B, type AB, and type O. In one genotype, I sub A, there are 2 alleles, and these are I sub A and I sub A. And in another genotype, I sub B and I sub B, there are also 2 alleles. These are I sub B and I sub B. When the parents, one with genotype I sub A, and the other with the genotype I sub B, have an offspring, there will be 100% chance that the genotype of the offspring will be I sub A, I sub B. That is because we crisscross the alleles of the genotypes. How about an actual exercise? Let's do it together. Let's try this. A female parent with genotype I sub A lowercase I has alleles, namely, and a male parent with genotype I sub B has alleles, namely. Let us crisscross together. As shown, there is a 50% chance to acquire a phenotype of blood type AB and another 50% chance to acquire a phenotype of blood type B. For polygenic traits pattern, this is more complicated than the multiple alleles pattern. If in multiple alleles, a phenotype is determined by a single gene with multiple variations, in polygenic traits, a phenotype is determined by more than one gene with multiple variations in each gene. Let me ask you, have you always thought that if one's father is Caucasian and the mother is Asian, the skin color of their child would automatically be the same as the father's skin. Well, that may be a wrong assumption. That's because the genotype for skin color is determined by multiple genes of the parents, with each genes having multiple alleles or variations. Now, look at the picture. See, both the mother and father have 3 genes each to contribute in determining the skin color of their child. The 3 genes of each parent resulted in having 8 possible skin colors. When crisscrossed, it shows that it is possible to have 6 children with dark brown color skin, 5 children with medium brown skin, 4 children with brown skin, 3 children with light brown skin, 2 children with very light brown skin, 1 child with fair skin, and 0% of having a child with pale skin. So, are you one of those kids who always ask their parents why you and your siblings have different skin colors even though you still have the same facial features? Well, that is because of the many genes your parents contributed. Can you keep up? Sure you can. So, let's try doing this. We are going to determine the eye color this time. A female parent's genotype is represented in genes uppercase A, lowercase a, uppercase B, and lowercase b. Variations or alleles of this gene are shown as uppercase A, uppercase B, lowercase a, uppercase B, uppercase A, lowercase b, and lowercase a, lowercase b. A male parent's genotype is represented by genes uppercase A, lowercase a, uppercase B, lowercase b. Variations or alleles for the uppercase A, lowercase a, uppercase B, lowercase b genes are shown as uppercase A, uppercase B, uppercase A, lowercase b, lowercase a, uppercase b, and lowercase a, lowercase b. Let's crisscross them. As you can see, several possible phenotypes can be expressed in the offspring. Let us ratio the possible phenotypes or the eye color. 1 dark brown, 2 medium brown, 4 light brown, 4 green, and 1 blue. Whew! That was scientific! Today, we were able to learn that aside from Mendelian inheritance patterns, which determines one's phenotype through dominant and recessive traits from the parents, there are also observed inheritance patterns that are outside Mendel's observations, and those are called non-Mendelian inheritance patterns. Non-Mendelian inheritance patterns can be classified according to intensity of dominance and variation of alleles. For intensity of dominance, there are codominance. It is a pattern in which both the dominant traits are expressed in the offspring. An example is a spotted cow. Incomplete dominance. It is a pattern in which the dominant traits are incompletely expressed, which result in a mix of dominant traits. An example of this is the pink flower offspring from a red flower and a white flower. For variation of alleles, there are multiple alleles. It is when a phenotype is determined by a single gene with multiple variations. An example of this is your blood type. Polygenic traits. It is a pattern wherein a phenotype is determined by multiple genes with multiple variation in each gene. An example of this is your skin color. Whatever your traits are, be thankful for your family, because that is what makes you uniquely you. I hope you learned a lot today. Join me again for our next Scienterrific Friday, and together, let us discover things around us, because science is everywhere. This has been Teacher Janelle for Teacher Vibal. Goodbye, everyone!